We wanted to talk some South Carolina football this week here at the Voice of College Football. So who do we go to? We got Chris Phillips on the line, of course. The Spurs Up Show, the Daily Crow. Get on over to Chris's Twitter handle at CPhilly19. You will see it on the banner here in just a second to talk some college football. Chris, how you doing today?
Mark, I'm doing well. Appreciate you asking. Coming off the bye week and now into Texas A&M. Excited to get back after it, but it was a fun bye week. Obviously coming off one of the best weekends of college football in quite a long time. I'd probably venture to say the best weekend of college football we'll have this season. But, Mark, it's great to talk with you once again. Always a great conversation, and looking forward to it, my friend.
Chris, let me set you up where I think most college football fans that are not South Carolina fans kind of see the Gamecocks right now, and then you can take it from there. You set us up for this during the offseason, during a lot of conversations. Hey, right out of the gate, Georgia's in week 2. That's probably not going to be pretty. Maybe we hang in that game. Maybe we try to get something done, but probably not going to be pretty. Arkansas on the road is not a great matchup. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people are looking at South Carolina right now. And shoot, yeah, the Kentucky win was nice. Will Levis wasn't there. The Kentucky win, though, was nice, but people are like kind of wrote you off. And then when they see Spencer Rattler's numbers, then they're really writing off South Carolina as a decent team. But you set us up for this in the offseason and said, hey, if we can get to this point and Kentucky's one of those games we need to flip in our win column on the right side, that we could be headed toward where we need to be at the end.
Yeah, Mark, it's funny. It doesn't matter how it happened or what it looks like. A win's a win's a win, right? It's a win anyway league. So you look at that Kentucky game, for example, and a lot of folks have said, well, they didn't have Will Levis and this excuse and that excuse. Again, it's a win anyway league, Mark. So, yeah, it's interesting the morale right now of Gamecock fans. I know we were talking a little bit off air. I think it's a little bit lower certainly than I expected it to be when we talked over the summer. And I said if South Carolina could get to 4-2, that start, the halfway point, that you would take that in a heartbeat. And I think it really would set you up. And I think it has set you up to have a successful season. Looking at this second half, I'd say your next 4 games are all very, very winnable. But it all comes back to the offense, right? It just hasn't been as flashy and as sexy as folks would like it to have been. You look at Spencer Rattler's numbers, 5 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Granted, a lot of those picks were not his fault, but still, I know we expected more. I expected more. But the bottom line is this: you are 4-2. That's all it comes down to for me, right? And I understand there's a lot of envy right now. And something that we've talked about a lot this week, Mark, what makes Shane Beamer's job even harder than it already is, because South Carolina is a hard job, in case people didn't know. It is. But what makes it even harder is you look at Georgia. You look at Clemson. Now you look at Tennessee and the success they're having, especially on the offensive side of the football. That leaves this fan base yearning for more, and I totally understand. Another huge opportunity this weekend, Texas A&M. I labeled a lot of these games, Mark, in the preseason. Arkansas, the biggest swing game of the year. Kentucky, the greatest inflection point. Missouri, the must-win. I don't know that I really put Texas A&M in any sort of box, right? But this game serves as a huge opportunity for all parties involved. And I think it's the one you're kind of looking at. I'm not going to say a measuring stick type of game because, we're going into week 8, effectively game 7 for South Carolina. But it's a great opportunity because if you are a quality football team, Mark, I look at it this way. If you are a quality football team, I know Texas A&M is loaded across the board with talent, but you've got a team like A&M that's reeling themselves at home, at night, in front of what will probably be a sold-out crowd. I feel like that's a game you should win, Mark. I really, really do. So, anyways, at this point in the season, though, I told you, it's funny, Mark, we had the conversations over the summer. We knew it was going to be a rocky start. I think it's been rockier than most expected on the offensive side. I understand, demand more. Heck, I've been doing it all season long. But don't lose sight of the fact, I think, Mark, the troubling thing with college football fans, this isn't just South Carolina football fans. And I come from the school of thinking in baseball, right, where a win's a win's a win. Hey, you win by a run, it's a success. In football, as you know, Mark, though, it's totally different, right? Style points matter so much, and you can't win by enough to appease the appetite of hungry fans. So while I understand that, though, if you ever get to a point where you lose perspective and especially you lose gratitude for winning, I think it's time to do something else, Mark. And I'm just not someone that's going to sit here and be miserable and down in the dumps when South Carolina is literally sitting at 4-2, where I predicted them and hoped they would be at the halfway point.
Chris, let's take 2 SEC Eastern Division rivals that you mentioned, and I also want to get to Texas A&M in terms of the perception of where this game stands versus what we thought in the offseason. Number one is going to be Tennessee because they are the talk of college football right now for obvious reasons. Okay, Tennessee had all sorts of issues. You got Jeremy Pruitt, you got 3-7, you got Josh Heupel stepping in, them having, a kind of a fun season, honeymoon season. Nobody expects anything. So if you win 7, you go to a bowl game, it all looks pretty and everybody's, and then he ups it from there. And that's one of those programs. They've been down for 15 years. They got a much better history than South Carolina, but South Carolina fans have been better since with 3 consecutive 11-win seasons. So that's got to be gnawing at South Carolina fans.
Oh, it is. No, for sure. I mean, that's the thing. I made this analogy, Mark, yesterday on the Daily Crow that, we're kind of like the kids at Christmas that open up your gifts and you're excited for an instant, for a moment. And then you look over and you see what your cousin got or your brother or your sister. And immediately it goes from contentment and happiness to envy, to lust, to we want what our neighbors have, to keeping up with the Joneses type of feeling. And I understand. I really do, Mark. I want to make that very clear because when you look at it, right, Tennessee was a dumpster fire. Shane Beamer and Josh Heupel took over at the same time, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, because that's the only difference, right? I'd argue South Carolina has been better defensively than Tennessee has, but it's an offensive game and people want to see points scored, right? On the offensive side, I think the question turns to what has gone so differently in Knoxville over the last year and a half versus what's going on in Columbia. And that's what leaves fans wanting more. And again, I don't blame them, and I can guarantee you Shane Beamer understands that. It also gnaws at Gamecock fans, Mark, when you see a guy like Jalen Hyatt, who Will Muschamp did not even offer, a kid that grew up and went to high school 20 minutes down the road from Columbia. He's now at Tennessee catching 5 touchdown passes against Alabama. You then look on the recruiting trail, the Bennett kid from, I believe, Greenwood High School, 4-star wide receiver, number 1 receiver in the state. I think number 1 player in the state, if I'm correct. Either way, Sunday, he chooses Tennessee. And word on the street is he went there because he looks at the 2 programs and says, that place is fun to play. The offense is fun. I don't see the Gamecocks offense getting any better. That's a problem. So I understand it gnawing at Gamecock fans. I really do. And so that's the issue that has to be resolved over the long term. Again, I understand changes probably have to be made. I would say right now, I'd venture to say that even if you finish 7-5, God forbid you finish 8-4, you probably still need to go a different direction offensively because, Mark, I think we have enough evidence at this point that South Carolina is running a very boring pro-style type of offense. It's not flashy. It's not sexy. And what they're doing with Spencer Rattler, if this continues, Mark, it's disgusting. And I don't mean that in a positive way. And it's an indictment on Carolina, and it will be used as a negative against them. It's like, if you're a top elite guy, why would you go there? Are they going to develop you? Are they going to get the most out of you? Are they going to get you to the next level? Who on South Carolina's offense right now, outside of Marshawn Lloyd, because he's having a fantastic year, and you know what? If it continues, let's say he hits 1,000 yards. If he made the decision to make the jump, I wouldn't even blame him. Coming back from an injury, the shelf life of a running back is extremely short. I wouldn't blame him. But in regards to the passing game and the playmakers you have, who else? Who else has elevated their game this year? Who else is a guy you look at and say is a top-notch NFL type guy? Jaheim Bell's a non-factor. Josh Vann, I feel so bad for that guy. Came back, has a child, thought he was going to elevate his draft stock. Nowhere to be found. Antoine Wells has been nice. He's been serviceable. But the passing game as a whole, Mark, has just been abysmal. And I just think there's enough there where I think it makes sense after the season. Marcus Satterfield's contract is up at the end of the year. It will make a lot of sense, in my opinion, to make a change. Because, again, it's an offensive game. You're going to have to score 40 points per game to really make that jump, if you will, and challenge the elites, I think. So it certainly does gnaw on the side. But, again, that's one of those things, and I posted a clip about it yesterday, Mark, that don't let the success of your rivals make you lose sight of what we have going on in Columbia. Even if it's not happening in the timetable in which you want it to, I still believe good things are happening. I mean, you look at recruiting, you look at where they are, Mark. South Carolina's 4-2. The Gamecocks are right on schedule. So when it comes back to that, I know maybe it hasn't looked the way you wanted, but you got to trust they're going to get it right. It's just year 2. I have not let this new age of college football spoil me into where, well, if the coach doesn't have it rolling by year 3, he's got to go. I still think guys need time to build a program. I know you have the transfer portal, and I think even more so, Mark, you talk about that. to the transfer portal point, you need a simple offense. And I think the Gamecocks, the overwhelming thing you hear, the theme you hear is that it's the complexities and it's too difficult to learn. And Spencer Rattler's talking about he's still coming around on. It's like, dude, we're going into game 7. You know what I mean? So if you don't have it figured out by now, I don't know what to think. So all in all, you should be grateful and thankful you're sitting at 4-2. But it is very difficult for Gamecock fans to sit back, and especially with the Tennessee thing, you feel like when Spurrier was there, they passed Tennessee as a program. You know, for a long time, you felt like you had passed them. And unfortunately, now it looks like the Vols might be back, and that's just another mountain you've got to climb in an already difficult SEC East.